The monitor flatlined at 3:47 in the morning, and in that single unbroken tone, the son of one of the most decorated admirals in the United States Navy was pronounced dead. The room went silent except for the hum of machines being switched off one by one, and somewhere down the hallway, a mother's scream tore through the sterile air of the hospital like a wound that would never close. If this story moves something in you, if you believe in second chances, in the quiet courage of ordinary people, in kindness that shows up when it's needed most, hit like, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Midnight Tales so you never miss a story like this one. Admiral Marcus Hale had survived firefights in 3 countries, had buried men under his command, had stood at attention while flags were folded and handed to widows. But nothing in 30 years of service had prepared him for the sight of his only son, 22-year-old Ethan, lying motionless on a hospital bed after a car accident that should never have happened on a rain-slicked highway outside Norfolk. Ethan had been driving home from his college graduation rehearsal, 3 days before he was supposed to walk across a stage his father had promised to watch from the front row. Instead, the Admiral stood in a hallway that smelled of antiseptic and grief, his hands trembling for the first time in his adult life, watching doctors shake their heads with the practiced sorrow of men who had delivered this news too many times before. The lead physician, Dr. Alan Wexler, was respected, exhausted, and certain. He had read the scans, the blood work, the absence of neurological response. He told the Admiral, gently but firmly, that Ethan's brain had suffered catastrophic trauma, that the heart had stopped and could not be revived, that there was nothing more medicine could do. Time of death was recorded. Paperwork began to move through the quiet, terrible machinery that follows a death in a hospital, the kind of machinery that does not pause for love or disbelief or a father's refusal to let go of his son's hand. Nurse Dana Alvarez had been on shift for 11 straight hours when she was asked to help prepare the young man's body for the morgue. She was 34 years old, a single mother of 2, working double shifts to keep her own small apartment warm through the winter. She had seen death many times, had learned to carry it without letting it break her, but something about this room stopped her at the doorway. It was not sentiment. It was instinct, the kind that develops after years of watching bodies in ways charts and monitors sometimes miss. She noticed the faintest change in the color beneath Ethan's fingernails. She noticed that his skin, though cool, did not have the particular stillness she had come to recognize in the truly departed. She pressed 2 fingers to his wrist, not because protocol demanded it, but because something inside her refused to walk away without checking one more time. There was a pulse. Faint, thread-like, almost imperceptible, but there. Dana's hands shook as she called for help, her voice cracking as she shouted down the hallway for Dr. Wexler to come back, that something was wrong, that this could not be over. The reaction from the staff was immediate skepticism edged with irritation. Death had already been recorded, the family already informed, the grief already begun to settle into the walls. Dr. Wexler, still believing the case closed, initially dismissed her concern as the kind of hopeful mistake exhausted nurses sometimes made in the middle of impossible nights. But Dana would not back down. She had built her entire career on trusting what her hands and her instincts told her, even when the world around her insisted otherwise, and she was not about to abandon that instinct now, not with a young man's life hanging in the balance of one more minute of doubt. They rushed Ethan back into the trauma bay. What followed were the longest 20 minutes of Admiral Hale's life, standing outside a set of double doors he was not allowed to pass through, listening to the muffled urgency of voices and machines coming back to life. Dana stayed by Ethan's side the entire time, refusing every order to step back, monitoring his vitals with a focus that bordered on fierce protectiveness. It turned out that Ethan had suffered a rare condition following his trauma, a profound state of metabolic shutdown triggered by hypothermia from the accident, one that had mimicked the signs of death so convincingly that even experienced doctors had been fooled. His body had, in effect, gone into a protective hibernation, slowing every function to the edge of stillness in order to survive catastrophic injury. It was a condition so uncommon that most physicians would never encounter it in an entire career, and without Dana's stubborn refusal to accept what the monitors told her, no one would have looked twice before it was too late. Slowly, carefully, painstakingly, Ethan's body began to respond to warming and intervention. His heart found its rhythm again. His blood pressure climbed from nothing into something. And when Admiral Hale was finally allowed back into the room, he did not see the calm, composed officer that decades of discipline had built into him. He saw a father collapse to his knees beside his son's bed, sobbing in a way that men like him were never supposed to allow themselves to sob, gripping Ethan's hand as though letting go even for a second might undo the miracle unfolding in front of him. Dana stood quietly near the doorway, drained and shaking, unsure whether she had just witnessed the greatest moment of her career or the greatest risk of it. She had defied a senior physician's judgment, delayed a legally recorded death, and put her entire professional reputation on the line based on nothing more than a feeling in her fingertips. In the days that followed, there were uncomfortable conversations, hospital review boards, and murmurs among staff about protocol and liability. But there was also a truth that could not be argued away: a young man was alive who, by every official measure, should not have been. Ethan Hale spent 3 weeks in recovery, slowly regaining strength, slowly remembering fragments of the accident, and eventually walking, with his father's arm around him instead of a coffin waiting for him, out of the hospital doors into the sunlight. He did not make it to his original graduation ceremony, but months later, when he crossed a different stage to receive his diploma, Admiral Hale was there in the front row exactly as he had promised, and standing quietly toward the back of the auditorium, invited personally by the family, was Dana Alvarez, the nurse who had refused to stop looking. The Admiral never forgot what she had done. He used his standing, his connections, and his voice to ensure Dana was not only protected from any professional fallout but was formally recognized for extraordinary clinical judgment under pressure. More than that, he made sure her story was told, because he understood something that his years of command had taught him in different uniforms and different battles, that heroism rarely announces itself with medals or fanfare. Sometimes it looks like a tired nurse pausing 1 extra second at a doorway, trusting a whisper of doubt over the certainty of everyone around her, and refusing to let go when everyone else already had. Before we close this story, we would love it if you could leave a comment with just one word: hope. If you believe there are still people in this world who refuse to give up on others, even when the odds say they should. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need a reminder that miracles often wear ordinary uniforms, and subscribe to Midnight Tales so we can keep bringing you stories that remind us what humanity, at its best, still looks like. Somewhere tonight, in a quiet hospital hallway much like the one in this story, someone is choosing to look twice, to care a little harder, to refuse to walk away, and because of that single choice, someone else gets to keep living their story.